I want to talk about something that challenged us a few years ago. We had a client that had a really challenging project for us. It was about a national technology foresight, looking at 10 different industries that we were going to help the nation invest in particular technologies, and it needed to be done in 2 different time frames, now to the next 15 years, and in 15 years to the next 30 years. That was already quite challenging, and then you realize that the client, 90% of the team have got PhDs in either science or technology, and so as good scientists, they will argue everything, okay? They wanted it data-driven, which meant using databases, using evidence that we could put back to the client, but they also wanted it expert-challenged. They wanted us to reach out to experts, validate what we had found, and anchor that into the kind of expert foresight that you sometimes see in Japan. And we were going to do this by linking to a range of different databases. So two main parts to this. One is we look at the pull for technology. So what are global trends? We talked this morning about a range of different global trends that influence us, that allow us to know where the world is going. But also then regional trends. What does that mean in this region, which has specific geographical and country needs and education levels? What does it mean for these industries? What can we say about customer trends in these particular industries? How are they evolving? So all of that is the pull analysis. And we then combine that with the supply of science. What is coming down the pipeline? What kind of technologies are coming to us that we can invest in, that we can lead the way in the future? And we do this by looking at publications and bibliometrics, by what patents are being launched, what kind of startups are looking for funding in particular technologies, what kind of deal flows are we seeing? And we do this at the 2 different forecast and foresight levels. And of course, we can do this, right? But it took a lot of time to do it by hand the first time, linking to the databases, doing the analysis. We were able to then look at the next 15 years, identify 3 technologies in each of these areas that the country might want to invest in, and then looking even further into the future, 15 to 30 years, because in this particular case, this is a country that is rapidly industrializing, rapidly building up its scientific and technological capabilities. They want to know what foundation they need to put for that. So of course, we can do that. We can do that at the company level as well. We regularly help companies try and figure out, okay, this is your technology strategy, this is your innovation strategy, how does it link to corporate strategy? What kind of technologies do you need to be investing in? What does your portfolio of activity look like? Is it the right kind of level of investment? How do you accelerate your technologies? How do you explore new technologies? How do you watch new technologies that you need to be investing in the future? And what kind of red flags can you see that if you don't pay attention to those will derail you, prevent you from achieving your goals, or because your competitors are working in these areas and they could be challenging that for you? So one of the things we did was to start automating this. If you could play the, yeah. We set up an automated AI system then that allows us to replicate this. This was important because the client wanted to be able to rerun all of the analysis a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years from now. So we can look at, I don't know, the energy industry. We can look at different time frames or geographies and tune that for a client, either a nation or a company, and say, look, what are the underlying trends? How do they correlate together, right? Is there a cluster of trends that you're working on? Can we catch some of the early growth signals? Which technologies are accelerating their performance rapidly right now and should be watching these for the next few years? And how does it play out in different geographies? Because if you're a global company, you don't have the same demand in Asia that you have in Europe. And as a result of that, we then have an AI assistant that allows us to handle the foundational layer of what we would call technology foresight. So we're able to look at tracking trends, horizon scanning, and trend scoring automatically. Okay, we can put that together, which then allows us to work more closely with the client around expert input. How do we reach out people who are experts in these technologies and work with you in a collaborative kind of ecosystem approach to figure out where you can make a difference? How do you plan your programs? Okay. It's then, on top of that, there's an AI assistant that will provide a report for you punctually at different parts of the year. Whenever you want to run a portfolio review, whenever you want to do a strategy, whenever you're not sure and you wake up in the middle of the night and ask yourself, am I doing the right things? It can rerun the analysis, linking to the live databases, which are updated regularly. On top of that, for the team that is running the process, it sends regular news updates. How is the technology changing? What does that mean? Should we try and do something different? Now, this is quite advanced in terms of AI use, right? But I kind of want to push to you that at any level, it's worth thinking about foresight and how the world is changing. Not just the trends, but how technology is evolving. At any level of business, it's worth doing that because it really allows you to think ahead and think about what capabilities you are going to need in the futures, because capabilities are difficult things to build up. Let me talk a little bit about something that we use to think about building capabilities, because having a great idea about what technologies are coming down your way, what you should be investing in, is great, but you need to build the capabilities to do that. And as we said earlier, it's likely that you don't have these in-house already, right? So I want to talk about a relatively simple approach that we've run for years now. The first is to look at competitive impact. How much impact is this technology going to have on the industry? Now, we can talk for, I don't know, we talk about airplane industry, you can talk about lightweighting, making things slightly lighter. Yes, it's going to improve performance a little bit, okay? When we start talking about electric engines for commercial aviation, that's a completely different story, right? What kind of impact will those two types of efforts have? And what is the strength that you have in-house to access this? Not necessarily to do all of the work in-house, but how do you access this externally, right? And then what we do is we work with companies to identify capabilities and then assess where their capabilities are positioned so that we can start thinking about where do you make investments? Where do you need to reduce investments? This, having a fairly base technology that everyone has, in which you are the world's leader, is not a great position to be in. This is the kind of technology that you should be open sourcing, you should be contracting out. You should be moving up to these kinds of technologies where you might be slightly weaker, but they're going to be having a huge impact on your ability to compete in the future. So we do this. How do we do this? We talked about foresight. It's one of the components here. The first thing is to think about the capability identifications you have in-house. That's not an easy task. Getting companies to identify what capabilities they have is an exercise that's worth doing in its own right. The foresight helps. The competitive benchmarking and analysis helps. And again, you can do this at any level in the industry, right? It benefits. Competitive analysis and benchmarking really helps you think about what your competitors are doing all the time. And then I would say the final thing we need to talk about is regulatory change. In a lot of different industries, energy, food, we know there are going to be challenges coming in the future. We know they're coming, and we need to adapt to those. And with that kind of mapping, we can we can map out the capabilities of a client, understand where they are. You can see they still have some strong capabilities and things that don't really make a difference anymore. And we can help them think about what kind of programs do you need to have to build better capabilities in the future. And that, I think, is worth thinking about. How are you going to build your own technical capabilities? When we do this kind of mapping, I just want to share a couple of things that we've come across recently. This is a mapping of percentage of research and innovation staff in companies in a particular industry and expected growth over time. One of the things that's really struck us, and it builds on the previous presentation, is the importance of DevOps, data engineering, AI, machine learning, in innovation, embedded with what we would, kind of technology functions that we typically think of. It's increasingly being identified as something that needs to be integrated into R&D, not placed in a special AI ML center in Bangalore there where you contract them to do things. They know they need to be working with your innovation teams. And so some key insights coming out of this: you need to get some AI capabilities, people who can exploit and deploy AI. They don't have to be the world's best. They have to be able to use it, deploy it. And then you need to diversify your teams to work across silos to make sure that you can benefit from multidisciplinary approach. Combine AI with other things. That's going to make a huge difference.